Hey, welcome to Undercover Adventure. Today we're going to talk to Clay Wright. Clay is known to most of the kayaking community as Uncle Clay. He's kind of the one that takes a lot of new paddlers under his wing and helps them progress through navigating how to get good at the sport, how to choose paddling partners. He's just one of those guys that gives back to the kayaking community a lot. So one of my favorite things about him is just a great person to learn from. He's always down to talk about kayaking. He's always down to help new people, teach role clinics, take new paddlers down. So hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks for coming down. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day, and I know you got a lot of stuff going on.
I have a lot of stuff going on. I've got to go kayaking in the area today, and I was going to go mountain biking in the area today, so it's absolutely perfect.
Awesome. So I appreciate. Thanks for making time. But what is your origin story? So I know you grew up kind of in this, like you were kind of forced into it from your family lineage and
It
stuff.
was kayaker watch.
Okay, so how did you get started in the sport?
My mom had gotten a divorce and moved back to Nashville, and my aunt and uncle had gotten really involved in whitewater canoeing. My grandmother had an aluminum canoe and paddled almost every day on the lake, and we all grew up doing that, and they had two. And then they started taking it to rivers nearby, the Harpeth and something that goes right through the middle of Nashville. They just started taking them more and more places with a group of Nashville paddlers who was also really into it, Bill Griswold and Dick Wooten later, and a lot of their friends. And they started the TSRA because they got really into doing like Big South Fork, that lower section, and then a lot of the Clear Creeks and stuff like that. And then like Blue Hole Canoes started right out of there, out of that same group. And then they could run a whole lot more stuff. So it was this incredible explosion of attention to, the enjoyment of wilder rivers and the protection of wilder rivers with trying to save the OBAD and trying to save all these local rivers. So I grew up with them getting better and better, and Mom just deciding, I'm new to town. I've got all these friends of my sister, so I'll go and hang out with those guys. So the next thing you know, we had a big basement, and people would come over and make boats in the basement, because back in the day, if you wanted to paddle a kayak or a C1, you got a kit and you made it off a mold, and then the whole house would smell like resin. And we had folding parties at our house where back in the day before internet, everybody from the canoe club and all the like hiking clubs and all outdoor people would all come over, and literally all these printed letters, and you had to fold them and put them in an envelope and put a stamp on it so that you could lobby your representatives.
Okay.
That was just what happened. And so there'd be, a party at our house once a month or something, or a couple times a year, where everyone sat around and did that most of the time, and then you'd all have dinner and drinks and stuff. And so I met a lot of people who were really into this sport. They also went backpacking, Savage Gulf, and all that sort of stuff. It was really the 70s outdoor boom going on.
Gotcha.
And pretty soon, we were staying home with a babysitter, and pretty soon I would go with them, especially if they couldn't find a babysitter, if they thought the campground would have people.
Yeah.
And so I grew up doing a lot of like hanging out at the NOC base camp while they went and paddled the river, and then we'd all have dinner at the end. Or I'd be hanging out at Hellhole all day while they went paddling, and then, you go back. And it was actually pretty fun, Paddling is a really fun thing to do, but you don't think about it, but the endorphin rush that people get on the river carries over to after the river. Mm-hmm. So the after the river part is really fun too. So I actually liked going. My sister wanted to go out, hang out with her high school friends more, but I really liked going. And so there were a lot of people in those campgrounds who decided that I should get better at this.
Where did you develop your skills? Like, what was kind of like the home river? Was it the Nantahala? Was it the Hiwassee? Like, where was the...
I would say I learned to roll just in a pool, and I was terrible. I think my first river trip, I got scared and went for the bank and grabbed a tree and ended up in the middle of the river. And the canoe that tried to save me went under a rock. And I was just, your typical little kid, easily scared, doing all the stupidest stuff you could do. I ended up hanging onto the tree in the middle of the river while people tried to figure out how to get me off the tree. So I was really scared for a long time. And until I got maybe 13, I went on a Dick Wooten trip to Colorado. And they told me I couldn't go on the river. And I was used to everyone saying, go, go, go. And I'm saying, no, 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 I'm scared. And that was like my thing or whatever. People would get me to go down the Hiwassee and make me roll and make me side surf these little holes, and we'd body surf Devil Shoals, but I was terrified. And all of a sudden, people telling me, a bunch of other kids, and they're like, oh, you don't roll in Whitewater, so you can't go. And that really pissed me off. And so
It's a
then,
good motivator.
yeah, it was a really good
Yeah.
motivator, because then all of a sudden I had to sit in the car while other kids went to paddle. And that was embarrassing. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So when I got back from that, and I did get to paddle a little bit, but I got my first combat roll, because it seemed like I was literally like, I'm going to swim to shore and roll myself back up. I'm not going to swim again, because then they'll never let me go. But once I had that, they took me on the Ocoee with a lot of those same kids. Mom found some good kids with Dick Wooten's crew, and said go with them. So I got down the Ocoee, and then, once I did the Ocoee, it was like I just want to do that every day. And it was a big break, because that was like at the end of the season. I think I finally got in the Ocoee, but the next season it was like anybody going to the Ocoee, I wanted to go. So I guess the Ocoee was my home river, and I learned just so much on the Ocoee. As a younger paddler is a lot more creative, I think, just because you don't know what you're supposed to do and you don't know what other people do. And we had a really strong group of people who loved to have fun, and so we were doing a lot of swimming, and then swimming rapids, and then trying to swim some of the things, and swimming downhill hole, and we just did a lot of fun stuff on the river, and that really developed my sort of all-around base skills, but not really the kayaking, because there weren't a lot of good kayakers that I was around. But I got a really good base, I would say, out of the canoe club, and got to take it on a lot of rivers. We ended up doing, Tellico and New, and by the time I was in high school, we went up and did the New and the Gauley with my parents in a tandem canoe, which was pretty cool. They were pretty good. We did the Grand Canyon right when I got out of college, and they were in a tandem canoe. So they were like super into it. My aunt, the one that kind of got us all started in it, she was the president of TSRA. My stepfather had been president of TSRA. They started their own canoe club. He was a blue hole dealer. So we were just kind of immersed in people who liked whitewater in Georgia, where we'd moved. And then every time we went somewhere else, they knew a lot of people. So I was going to TSRA annual meetings and going to, just kind of around that scene. So it was kind of interesting to go to college and think, this is going to be a big switch, because I'm not going to know anybody, and I'm not going to have any people to paddle with. So I'm just going to be coming home and paddling with my parents a lot on weekends and that sort of stuff, or whoever will meet me up. I went to Davison in North Carolina. And
What was your major?
political science.
Okay.
Yeah, my stepfather he taught law.
Nice.
But there were a lot of environmental people all around, so my dreams were environmental law, but also had this weird twist. For some reason in high school, you had to write your goals in the yearbook, and mine was to be driving a white BMW in Boulder, working for an environmental law firm. So I had the like, I want to be a yuppie, but I also I wanted to help the planet or something.
Yeah.
Which was weird. It was good. I mean, I think it motivated me to do well in school. I really think whatever you're going to do it well. There's no reason to try to just skip through life. I mean, if you're going to have to sit there and do school, do it well. Learn as fast. It's like a game. Play to win.
Right.
School was hard though. But I got lucky. My college advisor was Chris Bell, who would later be on the board of American Whitewater. Yeah. I'd been introduced to squirt boating already because my uncle got into squirt boating, and he knew some people, and I had a Phoenix Arc already. And so I took my Phoenix Arc to the Gauley to paddle with Chris Bell and those guys, and they were all in these tiny little boats. And they also, I think the second weekend, they introduced me to these squirt boaters who lived right in the area, and it was Forrest Calloway and Risa Shimoda. So one of the first times I went to paddle with them, I think, was on the Gauley, and they're all in these tiny little boats, and it was crazy. And then we went to the Russell Fork, and they were still in these tiny little boats. Mm-hmm. So I'm like in my Pro-Tech and Norse paddle and dancer, and they're all like, Risa's trying to figure out how she's going to get a rope in her squirt boat. And then everyone was like making fun of her and saying, like, you can try, but it's not going to work. So I ended up being kind of horrified getting shown down the Rustic Fork by people who were disappearing all the time.
Yeah.
But I got to make a save on that one, which they may not remember, but I remember it vividly. I was literally thinking, I am so freaking far over my head. These people are completely different species. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never been on a whitewater trip where I actually felt like I am super the weak link. These guys are so much better than me. But I did predict what was about to happen and hit somebody with a rope before they went off the next part of triple drop.
Yeah.
So I felt really good about that. I got to contribute a little bit, and those guys were really nice about it. The guy was thankful, and they mentioned that was great. I wasn't just a drag. And so I tried really hard to get to paddle with them whenever I could.
What was your progression? You talked about, kind of growing up and going with your mom and then going to the Ocoee and then now kind of the Russell Fork. What was like, if you could talk to a new paddler, like they just found this thing, this is their sport. Like
yeah.
I'm completely addicted now. Lay out like a good 2-year, like what mentality should they be in as far as their progression?
Something that we didn't have, which I think I got lucky in, is all the rivers around here are very shallow. So my kayaking, because I had nothing to do when I was a little kid, I ended up getting a really good roll. Hand rolls both sides, one-handed rolls on both sides. I could swim laps in the pool upside down and roll myself up. I'd go to these roll clinics when I could already roll. No one's going to listen to you when you're 13 about how to teach them to roll. And even when you're 15, even when you're 17, some adult is going to step in and want to teach somebody to roll. So you're kind of like just on your own to play in the pool. Mm-hmm. So I got a really good roll, and no one around me was really doing that much. So I think that is something that I encourage everyone to do now. The roll should be something that you're going to be able to do when everything is going wrong around you and you're completely out of your element and you don't know what's happening. But you're going to have that in the back of your head. It's going to slow down and I'm going to roll up, because that protects you so much from getting all the shin and the tailbone and the elbows and all the little things that make people think like, this kind of hurts. I don't know if I like this sport. Mm-hmm. And then progress slowly, and a little bit like school. It's like if you're going to be on the Hiwassee, then work the Hiwassee. I mean, if you can get down on the rapids, great. Make a goal for the next run and do that. Like, okay, I'm going to walk back up and do Devil Shoals backwards. I'm going to try to do 360s all the way down Devil Shoals. I'm going to do 3 rolls down Devil Shoals. Whatever it is, just keep trying to get better on whatever it is that you're paddling before you go to the next step. When I was paddling at the limit of my ability a lot, I didn't like it as much. When suddenly I was a lot better because I could roll, and I was still in a canoe club that was all wanting to run the Ocoee and all these other things, and they were very good canoers, but kayaks are easier. Yeah. And so I was at an advantage there. I never thought of it like that, but it put me in a great place to learn a lot. Because when we would run the Teleco, I could look at what the canoes were doing for a long time, and then afterwards I'd be thinking, well, why aren't we doing the ledges, Or why are we doing that line when there's all these other lines? So I got to do a lot of reading water and trying to be creative on my own in really safe places, surrounded by really safe people. I had this feeling that I could get into just about any trouble, and they were going to get me out of it. It was like having this safety net built around you.
How did you build your crew? Like, so for someone that just started and they're like, I don't know who to go with, I don't know, how would you recommend like developing a group?
That is one of the hardest things in paddling, I think, because at first you have to go with the clubs, and then you've got to navigate. There's this weird thing in the club culture where the people who are the most embracing of new people are often not the most skilled, or they may be, at a plateau, or they may be coming back down. And some of them are going to want you to pass them as fast as possible and go on. And some of them aren't. And that's a hard thing to know. But at first, take whatever you can get. Anybody who says, I will make sure you're safe on this river, go. Anybody who you can find a bond with, anybody who can teach you to read water. I mean, now there's books and videos about how to read water, but that's huge. I read Basic River Canoeing cover to cover, I don't know how many times while I'd be sitting at the takeout. And that had good basics, But now there's, William Neely books with Jim Snyder and all sorts of videos about how to read water. So really get as much as you can off water and then apply it on water in a crew that thinks that they can keep you safe on that river. And then as you notice that you're getting better, you can be pushy or you can not be pushy, but eventually people are going to notice that you're going to get better and they're going to invite you on harder runs, most likely. Mm-hmm. And if they're not, if you suddenly feel like you just really want to do these things, tell your friends and maybe they'll introduce you to somebody who wants to do that. Because if somebody says like, oh, I'm really, really good at the Ocoee, I really want to go to Mexico, I'm going to be like, hard no. That's not
Crawl,
the right
walk,
step.
run.
Yeah, let's find the right step for you. But suddenly I'm engaged. It's not a hard no. It's literally like, oh, this guy has goals. Let's see if we can put in front of him some more attainable goals. Because almost anybody who's gotten good at something respects the other people who are trying to get good at it. Mm-hmm. And it's a different thing to want to, go out and have a fun day with the club, and then you'll see the people that are actually like working it.
Yeah.
And if you identify with the people who are working, they're going to identify with you no matter what your skill level is. I have just noticed that I pick people up all the time. Occasionally, I'll just be on, running a river or something. One day on the Gauley, I'm paddling with, Steve and Wright, and I paddle together a lot and just working so hard to try to find new things to do on the Gauley and stuff. And off in the distance, I saw these guys, splatting some rock and then do a spin off it. And then they did a couple ends afterwards. And they're way off in the distance, though. And I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, who is that? And then eventually I'm kind of like rushing through a little bit, and I'm kind of like, I got to figure out, because that's going to be Andrew Holcomb or Brian Kirk. That's going to be somebody we know. Mm-hmm. And then it kept getting closer, and I was like, I don't know these kids, but I need to.
We need to be friends.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I don't know who you are. Who's your dad?
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be somebody I know. But yeah, you could see it. You can see it a mile away. These kids had it. They had the whole thing. It wasn't like they had all the skill or all the lines that we did, but they were working it so hard. And it turned out to be those KLCG kids who went on to be famous and great and all those things. And I was shocked at like the very next green race I think I was at. Some of those guys were top 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought so.
Yeah.
You see it.
It's funny, like the kayaking, I say it's 500 of your closest friends.
Yeah.
It's like everybody knows everybody, and it's like if you don't know, then you just immediately go to the person and you're like, hey, where are you from? Where you paddle? Like, yeah, we're going to be friends. So you don't know this yet, but,
Breaking into the world of harder whitewater is hard because when people tell you no, it could be that they think you're goofy and they don't like you. But a lot more likely, you don't have the skills to do what they're doing.
Genuinely looking out for you.
But they want to help.
Yes.
Because they're going to need a shuttle.
Yep.
And especially if you live vaguely close to them.
Yeah.
Like, you live here, and I live in Rock Island, and I would say that, half of my day when I go paddling sometime is trying to find someone to paddle with. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to find a shuttle again. Whitewater is not overrun with paddlers who all want to stay in their group. Unless you lived in Asheville during the time the green was around, there's nowhere you can go. Hood River now, you can go to Little White, but there's very few rivers where you just show up and know someone's going to be there. Instead, you drive home alone, and you think, I really wanted to paddle today. Or maybe you get in and find a place where you can paddle a couple of rapids and walk back to the car. So people want you to go where they go. It's just a question of making sure that you're not going to slow them down or scare them. And that's another thing, is if you're a newer paddler paddling with a more experienced group, when someone tells you not to run something, don't run it.
I've had people that, when I first started paddling, I don't know if I told a story before, like I had somebody like, they weren't mean, they were nice about it, but they were like, hey, you do not belong on the Upper Ocoee. You genuinely need to go to the Hiwassee, and you need to roll 50 times and then maybe come back here in a few months.
Yes.
And he wasn't being mean. He was genuinely looking out but it hurts your ego though, you don't want to hear it, but
Yeah, I was with a group on the Big Sandy, and just out of college, I was feeling it. I had been paddling with these really good paddlers who all talked about how cool Big Splat was. They had pictures of it on their wall. I'm going to the Big Sandy because I can't wait to run Big Splat. I've seen videos of it. I know the rapid. And when we get there, the guy says, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm scouting. And he said, why are you scouting? You don't need to look at this. And I was kind of like, actually, I'm scouting it because I might run it. He was like, you're not going to run it. And I was like, well, I'll be the judge of that. And then I scouted a whole lot. And I was with my cousin, and I was like, hey, do you mind holding a rope? I'm going to go. And my other friend was like, I'm really not comfortable with this. I don't think that you should be running this. Nobody runs this. Mm-hmm. And right as he says that, here comes this guy in a long green fiberglass squirt-looking boat, comes flying down the thing and just sails off it and lands at the bottom and looks up at us and like hooting and hollering. And he's like, you guys coming? And I was like, yes. And I pitoned really bad in the first drop because that's hard to scout, but I had a really good line. And the guy that I was working with, who was a lot better than me and who paddled with the guy in the green boat a lot, he wouldn't take me anywhere after that. They drove by where we were camped day after day going paddling, and he would say, no, I'm not going to paddle with you. If you can't not run something, then you're a danger to everybody. And, looking back, there's both sides of the coin.
Right.
The guy in the long green boat did go paddling with me, and he was great. But he did say, you need to work before you go in the upper Blackwater.
Dig into that a little bit more. So there's a phrase, it's called the zone of proximal development, and it's like right in that sweet spot of like you're at the edge of your skill set, but you have to also be honest with yourself about how much you're crashing.
Exactly. So I had a very different style because I learned with canoers. I did not paddle forwards much. If you're in a group of 11 canoers on the Gauley and you paddle forwards, you're at the front. And if you don't know where you're going, that's not a good place to be.
No.
So the way I paddled a kayak, learning on the Ocoee and paddling with canoers a lot of times, was drifting. That was my style, and people can argue that it's a terrible style all they want, but that was really what I was used to. I would come into rapids with almost no speed and just do the minimum it takes to get through the rapid, and then I would drift, and I was really good at angles, kind of setting angles and hitting moves like that, but no charging or anything. And so I think to everyone on the upper Yaak and a lot of the good paddlers of the Gauley, I was a terrible kayaker. I mean, literally, I was wearing all the wrong gear. I had a Protect helmet, I had a high float life jacket, a fiberglass paddle, and a dancer. And they're all in custom-made fiberglass gear and charging. So I don't think that I wasn't really crashing. But I do understand why he did not understand that I wasn't bad, because I did not paddle like anybody up there. And I had to learn that. Proximal development, I'm not sure what that is, but you do have to, anybody who's crashing a lot. My first foray into mountain biking, I got to go with the owner of Suck Creek Cycles, was on some thing, and we went biking together, and I was asking him about what bike do I need. He's like, you don't need a new bike, you need a new helmet. And I'll just be honest here, if you keep going like you're going, it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? I don't get it. He's like, you went over the handlebars 3 times today. And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, I was trying the things that you were doing. He was like, that's not normal. You don't need to do that. So that was a good one. In kayaking, if you flip and roll back up, you don't think of it as a big deal. So I was going into mountain biking thinking, well, I keep like bumping my front tire and just falling over the handlebars, but I always managed to roll out of it. It's always not that big of a deal. And it was neat of him to say, this isn't normal. You need to back off. Keep doing what you're doing, but don't go alone, and don't do these things until you can do them without falling. And 1 fall a day is the most you get. It's like, oh, well, mountain biking is scarier and not as fun anymore. But with kayaking, it's the same kind of thing. That I think I wrote something online that went over poorly recently where someone said we're all between swims, and I was like, you got to stop that. That is not the mentality that I believe in.
That quote.
There are kayakers. A good thing about risk sports is that everyone gets to make their own game.
Correct.
If somebody wants to jump out of an airplane with the smallest parachute ever and land in a swimming pool, I say go for it. I don't want to be the EMT involved.
No.
I don't want it to be my swimming pool.
No.
But I fully support their willingness to do it. In Whitewater, it's tough because we're tied together. If somebody swims and their boat gets stuck in a thing, then we're going to spend the rest of our day trying to get the boat out, or else having to go find wherever they walked out of in the woods and go get them. So our day is wrecked. And that's why it's kind of self-limiting. When somebody who's not very good, who's crashing a lot, says they want to go with you, and I'm thinking, oh, well, actually, I was going to get home and finish work, and that way I could get everything done by 5 and still have time to go to the gym. And if you go with us, that completely changes my schedule. No,
Right.
I can't do that. I want a fast hour-and-a-half lap, and I'm back home. And that's hard to recognize too. Sometimes the people who really want you to get better just don't have time for it that day. But if you're crashing, that's a red flag to everybody. Every time you swim, and that's why they didn't want me to go. Every time you swim, that's scary to everyone around you. Even if it's not scary to you, that's a little scary to me when somebody swims, because I'm thinking suddenly we're dealing with all these randoms. There could be a log underwater. There could be a rope underwater. There could be a foot entrapment. They could swim the wrong way and go right into the next rapid, which is really bad. There's just all these like stressors that pop up. And so even while I'm smiling and laughing and saying, swim right, you're fine, everything's good, I'm also thinking, keep your eyes open, keep your eyes open, keep your eyes open. And then once you're back in your boat and you're all cool, I'm thinking, that kind of stressed me out. And that's not what I really want. Risk sports don't have to be about scaring yourself. I have a delicate adrenaline where when I'm doing things really well and crisply, I get a really good dose of it. It's like an accomplishment. It's like a sweet adrenaline. Like it makes you feel powerful, and it makes you feel smart, and it makes you feel like you have good judgment, and you're like, it's like a pride thing of like, I am acing this stuff. And when I have a bobble, if I land 5 feet to the right of where I want to and I don't hit a rock, but it was definitely not where I wanted to go, that's an adrenaline that's different. It's like almost a like warning.
Yeah.
It's like a light going on in your car saying engine trouble. It's like, ooh, you're not quite as good as you thought you were. You need to be careful. And that's what keeps us safe. So if you're hitting your lines and hitting your lines and hitting your lines, then you can go on and do tighter and tighter lines and higher consequence stuff, because like today it was foggy on the drive here. And I'm thinking, wow, the odds of me having a wreck just went up like 10 times. So I'm actually going to pay attention to the road and not be looking at my phone or messing with what song I want to hear next or any of that stuff. I got to pay attention today. And that's a little bit like kayaking. Once you miss a line, the whole rest of your day has a cloud over it. You've got to be like, you're not quite on it. Be more careful. You want a lot more leeway. And getting your lines to the point where they're a foot wide is just a beautiful, super rewarding and fun thing. So I can go on the Ocoee. Oh, a good example. On the Ocoee the other day, I didn't remember flipper as well as I thought. No big deal. Missed the little kicker booth. Then went on to miss the little harder Watauga line, whatever that thing is below there. And I was like, it didn't ruin my day, but it definitely put a big cloud on it, because I was like, wow, I better be careful when I go back to creeking, because I'm not as good as I used to be. And that's okay, because that's a safe place to do it, right?
Right.
But it means that I'm probably not going to hop on bear at high water right now, because I know in my head this is not working. I'm not as sharp as I used to be. I haven't been kayaking as much. I haven't been kayaking hard stuff. Back off. And that's necessary. But when you're a new kayaker, you don't have those safeguards.
I know.
So someone has to give them to you. And they might be good at delivering that message, and they might not. They might just seem like an asshole.
Yeah.
And I would say, the guy who was mad at me for running Big Splat definitely seemed like an asshole. And I was having to work with him every day. And for years, I thought he was an asshole. But I don't know what he saw. I think he might have been trying to keep me safe.
Right.
And the guy who encouraged me, who said, are you coming? That was John Regan. And he's notoriously optimistic for other people. And now I know that. So him saying, oh, come on, it's easy.
Yeah.
He was taunting the group. He was being, boisterous and what do you call it? Exhilarated from just acing the line. And that's also not an invitation. If that's an invitation and you think that means that you're good enough, even though he's never seen you kayak, you got a problem. So yeah, I was pretty inexperienced at that point.
Go into your time at school for a little bit. So you studied political science, and then what did you do when you got out of school?
I was really into the political science thing, and I had from Woody and Risa, I was learning more and more about like lobbying groups and that sort of stuff. Plus, the stuff that had been going on in Tennessee and Georgia where I'd been. And so I did an internship with American Rivers, and I was really psyched about kind of like seeing how a lobbying group works.
Yep.
And that was really, really critical to where I went after that, because I go to D.C. at Georgetown, taking summer school classes in the middle of D.C. with Tiananmen Square riots, and people are burning the flag, and there's concerts, and it was just a world of activity, and I was so in love with D.C. But working in American Rivers just flat out sucked compared to what I was expecting. Mm-hmm. I had never been exposed to that type of work that everyone is doing now, where people go to work early to try to get ahead, and then they stay really late trying to finish up what they really want to accomplish. And so I'm thinking I'm going to D.C., so I'm going to paddle the Potomac every day. But then I realized I have to get started an hour earlier just to be a little bit late, because it was like really hard to be on time because everybody wanted that bus. But you could be a little bit late a lot. But then you get in trouble for being a little bit late. So now all of a sudden I'm having to take the bus before that. So it's like it was like an hour and 30 minutes ahead that I had to get to the bus stop. And then I wouldn't get home until right before dark. And it was like, man, this is really sucking. This is not what I expected out of life at all. DC is really hard. Because even when I say like, oh, sweet, I got home in time to go kayaking because it doesn't get really dark until 9, I barely make it in time to get some surfing in. And then I get home super late and I've got to go get up and do the whole thing over again. I'm like, man, half of my day is spent in traffic. And then when I'm at work, I liked the work, but I noticed that I was it was like me and the secretary who would go for a full lunch every day, and me and the secretary who would leave at 5. And everybody else was still at their desk. And they were all working really hard, but up against big money. Yeah. An organization like American Rivers can't pay good lawyers what the people opposing them are getting paid. Mm-hmm. So they don't have the resources, they don't have the staff, they don't have anything. They are literally in it for the love of it and working harder than the people going against him, and the whole setup was set up against him. I was reading Corps of Engineers reports. That's what they gave me some little side project because I'm just an intern. And one of them was to read some Corps of Engineers products, and anything that I saw any red flags on to put it in a separate folder. And I was like, what kind of red flags do you mean? And they were like, you'll know. Just read it. They're really not careful. And so, I'm coming from college, so I dive right in there. And their math is wrong. Their math is wrong all the time. They just blatantly made things up to excuse projects. It was horrifying. On one of the things, an early one that I picked up, and that's when I got really angry and got really into it, they wanted to build some sort of lake in Alabama, and the average depth of the lake was going to be 8 feet deep. And they talked about all the trout fishing that was going to happen in the area because of it. And I don't fish, but I know that trout don't live in lakes that are 8 feet deep in Alabama.
Right.
And I know that even if you did have trout fishing 8 feet deep in Alabama, you're not suddenly going to get all these people coming from all around to boost the economy and the numbers that they were talking about. Mm-hmm. I was like, who writes these things? Another one was about how they were going to have a lock so that the barges could go through some new canal. And I did the math. It took me a while to figure out the math, but the math meant that the barges would be touching each other, going through the locks 24 hours a day in a place that there was no barge traffic currently. And that was the net income to the area that they were quoting to try to get these proposals. So it just seemed like it was like every time you open one, you're just like red, red, get to the next one, red. I was like, man, this is so corrupt. This is awful. Anyway, so it was kind of weird because my stint in D.C. made me think I'm not ready for this.
How did you transfer to when you got involved with Jackson? Because I know, describe kind of that introduction to Jackson and then, your role at Jackson and then what modern day looks like.
Tried to do a short, I just wanted to get the hell out of school when I got out of school. And I literally thought, my sister went to Europe. Lots of people, go to Europe and go backpacking. I was like, I'm buying a van and going to California. I better do some living because it looks like the rest of my life is not going to be that fun. And did go to California, I stopped off and did the Gore race, just happened to stop in to try to find somebody to take me down the Gore, and they were having a race, and I ended up doing the race, and I got fourth, which was crazy. But I was like, wow, this is really fun. That was on that same trip where my parents did the Grand Canyon. Had like 13 members of my family. It was great. But then came back. My cousin got a job video boating in West Virginia, so I went back and did that for a little while. I knew lots of people from Dagger. All of a sudden, I'm going to rodeos because Woody and Risa are there. Pyranha shows up. Somebody, Denver McClure, actually, he gave me a stunt bat to paddle. Actually took it off his car and threw it on my car at a stoplight and said, you've got to paddle this boat. It's going to blow your mind. And I did, and it did. And then I went to Pyranha, and all of a sudden Piranha's like, hey, they're having a world championships, and you should go. And I go to a world championships, and all of a sudden there's all these international people I meet Dan Govere and all these people that I knew as big name kayaker people, EJ, all these kayak heroes that I'd seen on the Ocoee in the first Worlds, and all of a sudden I'm going kayaking with them, and they're inviting me to go to trips all over the place. So all of a sudden it was just like, every trip, it seemed like the trip of a lifetime. You have to go. Yeah. My parents were very supportive. They're like, wait, you're going to Germany to go kayaking?
That's cool.
Yes, we'll help you pay for the plane ticket.
That's really cool.
Then it's like, oh, you're going to Chile for 2 months? Well, you can just live at Rock Island. How much is the ticket? Do you have the money? Go. Don't worry about the rest of it. Just go. My mom was really supportive of my kayaking, and it wasn't as much that she was just handing me checks or anything, but she was just like, you can't turn that down.
Go have these experiences.
You're going.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen every day. You go. And so then videos started happening, and I'm in some videos, and BJ Johnson makes a video, and it goes really big, and all these people want to see it, and then Pyranha gives us an RV, and all of a sudden we're driving around the country in an RV going to all the paddling festivals. And then Woody all of a sudden is a big wig at Perception, and Reese is the marketing director, and they hired me to drive their RV. And that was actually more like a real job, 27 dates, I think. All of a sudden, it was just very strange. It made it really hard to think, I think I want to go reapply to law school. Because I was like, man, it seems like I'm where I'm supposed to be. I know that sounds kind of fun, but it's a little bit like somebody handing you chocolate cake, and you're supposed to go back and eat oatmeal. Right. It's like, well, they didn't.
I like that.
The world just handed me this cake, I'm not saying that I would go way out of my way and seek this out. I mean, I'm definitely selfish, but it definitely seemed like wonderful things kept being placed in front of me, and I followed them. And it seemed like a great thing to be doing. I have zero regrets with that. When people ask, how did you get into that? Did you decide to be a professional kayaker? The answer is definitely no. I still think that if things had been the slightest bit different, I would be a lawyer and doing some sort of legal work or something like that. It just, fun opportunities kept being presented right in front of me. I was around at the right time where people did say things like, like I fell off the truck, the first event for Perception, broke my hand. And I'm like, oh my God, this is over. This is going to be terrible. And they're like, was it our truck? I was like, no, but it was your rack. And they were like, okay, we're putting you on health insurance. Do you want to keep doing the tour? Yes. Okay. Wow, this is sweet. So then I just started doing more work for the events. That was a good experience for me. I was on a big tour teaching kayaking when I couldn't actually kayak. So I got into judging and helping organize events and that sort of stuff. And then when I could get back in, then I was in. But all of a sudden, I was judging and organizing a lot more too. And that kind of fulfilled a little bit more of the, not really give back, but at least to have something to do that's not just watch your videos and see how you can be better.
Gotcha. What about your role at Jackson? Talk about...
Jackson worked out great. Perception crashed. EJ had a falling out with Wave Sport. He had just moved to Rock Island. We were paddling together every day. He wanted to start a kayak company. And he did all the work and just got the whole thing rolling. And suddenly we had a kayak company starting in Rock Island, Tennessee. And I loved, because I'd been coming from Pyranha, who was like a little bit the cool kids. We were like punk rock, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. But having, being a college graduate and very aware, like I felt like my role on rodeo tour for a long time was keep people from going to jail. It was getting more and more so, especially hanging out with the Pyranha kids and stuff. And I would just be like, going through the RV to make sure nobody left anything in it. And, no, you can't put a whiskey bottle on the dash. That is not going to work. We're going to Canada. I remember multiple times going to Canada and being terrified of just like
getting stopped and getting searched.
Who knows what somebody's got in this thing. And so I'd have to like talk to everybody, We've been pulled over 7 times. If anything's in the rig, they're going to find it. Everything goes out. And I was kind of over that. We had a great party. Perception of this badass party at the Ocoee. And we had the music was going, the dance party's on. They're like dyeing people's hair in the front. It was like the peak of the party. And there's a policeman who's wedged himself in the back and standing up on something, and he's looking in the window at the people inside, which didn't bother me, except for then I looked at who the people inside were, and I was like, why are they in an RV? Oh, my God. These people were sneaking in our RV trying to sit there and smoke dope so the cops wouldn't see them, and the cops were up in the back looking in the RV, and it was just like, man, this is just, I'm kind of tired of this.
And that was right when Jackson was kind of hitting there.
So all of a sudden Jackson's starting up, and EJ has this all-American, clean-cut image, and he's not really into the party scene. He's not really into people doing drugs, and he's really into getting more families involved and stuff. And I was like, sign me up.
Yeah.
I love being 20s, and that is all great, but I also recognize how many of my friends have gone to jail and how many can't go to Canada again and how many have done just stupid stuff and ended up not being able to travel and kayak anymore. And it's not going to last. I would much rather represent more of what I grew up in, where if people want to smoke dope, they smoke dope. If people want to drink, they drink. But you keep it together. You're not belligerent. You're not rude to other people. You're not going to pass the noise ordinance. You keep it together and respect everybody in every campground all around you so that everybody can be glad you came. And that was really fun. EJ was all about the kids. And, I didn't really know that I was going to like working with kids so much. But I identified so fast. Being a 13-year-old on the Ocoee meant that you were the cute little kid, and everybody wants to be like, oh, look at him. Can you do a roll? Oh, do a roll. Look, the little kid can roll. You get all this attention for just being whatever it is that you are because you're younger and doing it. But then people act like they're going to carry your boat for you and do all this stuff, and then you're not ready when the next thing. Or, the worse yet, when you finally grow up a little bit and nobody does all that stuff, you feel like they don't like me anymore. Well, no, you're just not little and cute anymore. Get over it. So it was really fun having Dane and Emily along for the ride and being like, right now you're getting all this attention because your dad's a superhero. It's not going to last. If people are really into you because you're EJ's daughter, what have you got?
Yeah.
You need to be Emily. You need to be, figure out what it is that you are and be that. And then with all the kids that we attracted, because with Emily and Dane, all these other kids were riding the RV. We got to meet Jason Craig at a really young age, Lauren Burress, Sage Donnelly.
Love her.
And all of a sudden I just realized, man, I'm one of the few people around here who knows what that's like. I know what it's like to be a cute little kid and on rivers that some of the adults are really mean to you because they don't think you should be there. They're not going to listen to you. And they're going to tell you not to do things. So you really got to be careful about which adults you listen to. And I really got off on that. I was like, man, this is cool.
Are you still involved with the Keeners and the Ottawa stuff?
I want to be. After I've been in it for over 15 years, I think. But when I injured my shoulder, I had to drop out because part of working that program is being able to paddle at a certain level. A beautiful thing about kids is they don't know anybody's history. You don't get their respect because of what you did 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. They don't have that.
Right.
It's a new generation. They don't know I ever did rodeo. They never saw those VHS tapes. You're just some guy who's out there to teach them. And until you lace back-to-back air screws, they don't really care that much about what you say. As soon as you've got something that they want, which is skill and courage, then they don't really care. You're just some old guy. And I know that, and I've known that forever. And so it's always been a really fun thing for me, especially the older you get. It's been really fun to, teach the roundhouse, to teach the roundhouse, to teach the spin, to teach the spin, to teach the spin. And you realize they're not paying attention. So then you go out there and do some air screws and some helixes or do a big fat loop and come down into a Pyranha. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, my God. And it's
can
like,
you listen to me?
oh, what? We're not working on that. I was just doing that for my free time. Let's go back to it. And then I got good at telling the other instructors kind of the same thing. It's like when the kids are staying out and sneaking out and they think that they're getting things way and they're talking too late and all that stuff, come to practice with us. Mm-hmm. And so the people who were watching the kids at night, all they had to do was an air screw. And all of a sudden those kids stay in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to get kids respect if you have something they want, and usually that's skill. So once I realized I wasn't going to be able to show off air screws on garbs, I just thought, there's other kids who can do this. I really want to get back to it. I think I can get back to it, but I've got to be able to drop into right side, and I've got to be able to do air screws on garb.
For people that don't know what Keeners is, describe it at like a broad level.
It's a place for kids to be kids in a really wholesome, healthy, safe environment where we can absolutely scare the crap out of them and let them recognize what's the difference between scary and dangerous, and let them be with other paddlers of a vaguely the same age and kind of get that sense of, I'm not kayaking with my parents. Do I like this? Do I not like this? And wow, it's really fun to just have our own crew. So it's a little like summer camp, but every class is kayaking. And the instructors we are allowed to do things with kids that no one else is because it's on the Ottawa River. The Ottawa River has had 2 kayaking deaths in its whole history that I know of. And one of them was under the ice. It's ridiculously safe river, but it's big and fast and scary. So it's this ideal situation for kids who have, strong bones and strong connective tissues, and not whether they have skill or not. All they need is ambition, a willingness to try, and a roll. Mm-hmm. And if they don't have a good roll, you're fine. If they've gotten a roll and they can, listen to us and learn, then we'll get them a perfect roll. We can take people in 3 weeks of kayaking every day with a kid. Almost every kid in that Keeners is going to run the Gauley with us afterwards.
Wow.
And they're not just going to run the Gauley.
They're going to run it well.
We take them on hard stuff.
Yeah.
We'll divide the group. Oftentimes I'll find somebody to take people on the sneak line through Pillow, and then there'll be a whole bunch of Keeners who want to catch the room. So it's really interesting to be able to take people's skill from pretty new and inexperienced to really good. Mm-hmm. But then we get to other rapids and we'll say things like, no games, 0 games on this one. This is dangerous. And because we paddled with them so much in places that are vaguely safe and said things like that, they know if they go off and try to splat some rock that we told them not to, they're off the water. I mean, so the most severe consequence we can come up with is they're off the water for a day. And because that's a consequence, it's an embarrassment. It is a humiliation. That's the last thing they want. And that's what keeps kids safe, is the knowledge that if they drop into the next hole and you told them, do not drop into this hole, they're off the water. They don't have to know why. They just have to know that you can't do that. So it allows us, after 3 weeks with these kids, to take kids on the Gauley instead of when I take other people on the Gauley and they suddenly see a slot that I'm not running and they decide to run it. Or they think the slot that I'm running is really scary, so they want to run the thing next to it. That scares me like crazy because we're able to take people into something like the male slot because we know these kids are going to be tough enough to survive bloody knuckles. But we're not going to take them on a lot of things that other people do, because it's like, we're going to we might run Angel's Crack instead of second drop of last paddle, because I just don't want anyone to get hurt. Knuckles, fine. Elbows, fine. Hit your head, no.
What's some of the high points in your career? Because you've been in it longer than.
I don't know. I have, winning is fun. That's a weird thing. So even if you win the junior C1 expert class, winning is pretty fun. So I've gotten to do some amazing things based on winning, which is just weird. The first green race, it's high water, and a lot of things went wrong, and a lot of people who were really good were frazzled or whatever. But I had in the back of my mind, I think this sport is growing. I think this is a really cool thing. It's going to happen again. There will never be an easier year to win than this one. So that was kind of cool. And I would say the winning part was good, but also the all of a sudden it just flashed in front of me. This is it. If there's ever a time to win something, it's this.
That's a pretty cool thing to say, that you won the first green race, though.
And it is. Looking back on it,
Yeah.
and it's twofold.
Yeah.
Winning the green race opened a lot of doors, because suddenly people who knew that I was some kayaker who did a lot of playboating from Rock Island were like, I didn't think he was going to beat Shane, or I didn't think I was going to beat Shane, and I knew that Shane was probably one of the people to beat, and Jeff West was out there. There were lots of really good paddlers there, but I think that I did have the extra motivation of saying that where I see kayaking going, this is going to be a big thing, and I really want to win this. But then I broke my boat. In the practice run, I put 13 holes in a borrowed response, and so I had to go back to my regular creek boat. And so that added a lot of adrenaline and endorphin and the knowledge of I've really got to paddle hard. And then, I think Woody said he would go first for some reason, or wherever Woody was, I was like, I need to be behind him. Mm-hmm. And they were like, how come? And I was like, so I can see where he goes possibly. And they were like, well, you're not going to see him. We're starting a minute in advance. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to gain so much ground on someone who's really fast that I'll be able to see where he goes. And so it was really cool that way. I think I had lots of things going in my favor. But afterwards, winning was fun. But there was no big awards or anything like that. But it was really fun to have done that. And that set me of the mindset of, EJ is famous because he won some things. People like it when you win. And I like to train, and I like to be the best. So I got a little bit more into competition at that point. Before, I'd never been into competition. But that was kind of the Gore race. Someone offered me a kayak because I got fourth place, which seemed crazy. Chan, who was doing wave sport. But I was like, well, this is weird. So you got rewarded when you show people that you're good. So it's really fun to meet those goals. Squirt boating, I thought that'd be really fun. Won a couple of worlds in squirt boating. That's always been fun. It's an insane experience when you're standing on a podium having the national anthem play in a foreign country, and there's actually hundreds of people around that are all standing there watching you. The one in Spain was just out of this world. It was opening ceremonies in the town of Sort, Spain. So, I don't know. I like to squirt boat. It's fun. I'm pretty good at it. But all of a sudden that puts you up with all these people, all the Americans are doing this, everyone else is cheering or whatever, and there's a Jumbotron behind you. And it's like, this is the weirdest thing.
You're like, is this me?
It's like kayaking is making me feel like a rock star occasionally.
Yeah.
And that's good on the ego. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But I would say, the other things are just as cool. I mean, finding a run like Mans Creek gives me a massive amount of reward. BJ and Kent McCracken, there was definitely a group of us, but there's all sorts of runs. OB Joyful, there's lots of places where we put in the work and hiked things and tried to make them happen, and now they're a part of a lot of people's kayaking enjoyment. Mm-hmm. So that gives me sort of a lasting feeling of accomplishment. Working on tricks and being able to pass them on, working on the scoring system, there's lots of things that kind of give you a lasting feeling of accomplishment. But there's also, I think what I'm most addictive to is a perfect day. I haven't had that many of them, but when you have a river that you're doing enough, that you have all these goals of what's going to make it perfect, and you hit it, it's just the coolest feeling. I had a day on the Foo where there were all these things that I really wanted to do on the Fuda before our time was up. And good friend of mine, Pablo Perez, drowned back home, and we got the news or whatever, and I was literally thinking of, what is it I'm scared of on the Fuda Lafute? Swimming? Mm-hmm. It'll be awful. I might lose my boat, but it's not some log-infested tiny creek in the cold. That's what just happened to him. He was way happier down here. What don't I want to do? Mm-hmm. And I had this just amazing day where it's like almost every hole on the river, I just thought, fuck it, there's nothing to risk here. Yeah. I can swim from here. And I just started dropping into one thing after the other, and then all the harder lines. It was like everything was in slow motion. I was just on fire. I was just acing everything. I was coming through Zeta in control. I was coming through Throne Room in control. And then I was also doing like 5 different moves that I wanted to do, and I aced them. So I was just like, how do you have a day like that?
Right.
I had a string of Gauley's where I hit the room every single day, which was really fun, and I still can't do it every time. But that's always been a thing. But I've had a couple of days where I hit every single hard move on the Gauley that I have there's like 20 of them. There's a bunch of moves on the Gauley that I want to do. And usually I'll get most of them. Mm-hmm. Some days I miss a lot of them, but every once in a while I'll get every single one. And that's just such a good feeling. You're coming into that last rapid, and you're like, I would say I'm home free, but there's 3 more things that I have to hit. And it's like everyone else is like winding down, and there's the car, and it's like, no, there's 3 more Sternsworth 360s before the car. And it's really cool when you get it. So I like kayaking really well. I can do that on the Caney Fork. I mean, I've had some days on the Caney Fork where I just felt like the first day in the Nirvana prototype was a great one. It was like, I had this list that I wrote down of different things that I thought might go, and I aced 5 of them in one day. I was just like, yes, that is, when you feel like you're a better kayaker than ever before, mm-hmm. That's just a great feeling. Because otherwise, sometimes you feel like I don't know, it's like you've been working at a problem forever and you're getting worse at it, and it's just never going to get better. That's basically what kayaking your 50s is like. So many things you're just not as good at because you can't take a hit. Mm-hmm. I don't want to run stairway that much anymore because I'm kind of like, hitting my elbow back then was like kind of bad, but my shoulders aren't that great right now. If I flip on stairway, it's going to be bad. Yeah. I might have to walk out. I might not be able to kayak again for a while. So everything feels like it's gotten more dangerous, and so you've got to be even better. There's a move at Iron Ring. I call it hot left. I don't know. Not many other people are into it, but I think anybody who follows me on social media knows I've been posting that thing for over 10 years. And the clutch, the antics came out, and I reined it in to having to do one stroke. And I was like, oh, I could do one stroke. That'd be cool. But I never could quite get it, but I was super close to it. I could do one stroke and then one, and then the clutch comes out, and I just greased the crap out of that thing like so many days in a row. And it was just the coolest feeling in the world of like, I've been doing this for 50 years. Mm-hmm. I did one thing better than ever. That's saying something. In a boat that I helped make, that gave me the tools to do this one thing better than ever. And that's feeling of reward. Yeah. I guess every human on the planet wants to feel like you accomplished something. Mm-hmm. And I do want to get more into giving more back. I've been paying $15 to teach other people to roll lately because I get to the rolling clinic, and what I'm there for, I've got my squirt boat and my play boat, is I want to go play, but then I see people
struggling
who need help, and I'm kind of like,
transfer is real.
Yeah, this is something that's easy for me, and this is going to be important to them. So that seems more important. And a lot of rivers that I'll run, I'll do that too. I'll just suddenly be like, I can add something to this guy's life. Teaching keeners has given me working with Steven and working with EJ, paddling with Dane. A lot of these guys are really good at what they do, and so I get to absorb a little bit of what they're doing, and it's really fun to turn people on to some of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Dane has just been super weird. a transition of a little bit like working with Pat Keller was the same, of when you're working with someone to try to get them up to being the best they can be, and then you recognize, at this point, my hands are here, and we're going like that. It's like you want to like propel them as hard as you can for where they're headed. Like, I can't do what you're about to do, and I know it, and I want to make sure that you get there. And that's been really fun. But with Dane, it's just like, he's just on another level.
I mean, he's okay at kayaking.
He's got, a lot of the Holcomb and Pat Keller. I grew up as a little kid, but he's also got this incredible connection to Whitewater because he started before everybody else. Yep. He was a tiny little kid chasing us down the river. I told you about those 5 moves on Caney Fork. He picked 3 of them on site, just following me down. And I was, planning to hit the moves or whatever, but he was in front of me. And at the bottom of the rapid, he's like, "Oh, that's a cool pillow. I've never done that before." And I was like, "I didn't post it. How the hell did you find that?" I've run the Caney Fork so many times, and I saw these, these cool things that you're like, it'd be really good, but if you mess it, it's going to be bad. And he just zips in there. On the high water Caney Fork day we did, I noticed on his video afterwards, every time I turned around to say, at high water, this becomes a really big hole on the left. So I'm going to cut right. And I didn't realize this till I saw his video. It got to where every time I said that, he went left and dropped in sideways. And afterwards, I was like, "You literally surfed every hole in the Caney Fork?" He's like, "Yeah, because I knew I was going to the Stikine. I really wanted to get ready." It's like, oh my God. It's weird when you paddle with somebody who's not just that much better, but like they just see things in a way you don't. Mm-hmm. It's fun. Yeah. Like, I'm thinking, wow, I'm so glad I missed that. Oh my God, he's paddling back into it to surf it again. Okay. And he's doing really well.
Well, you can't have the highs without the lows. What are some of the low points? Have you had some injuries, and what was
yeah. Obviously, lots of people in my world died. That was a good encouragement for me to get more into playboating and to get more into instruction, because if you surround yourself with people that are really pushing the limits of kayaking all the time, and your whole goal is to go on hard trips and do the hardest things in the world, you're basically on a really, really high platform, and all it takes is one slip and people don't make it. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of recognize that. I do think the numbers are okay. They're not that bad for the number of people doing these things, and the people at the very top end are doing really, really well. But running any loggy creek every day is just risky. Mm-hmm. Stupid logs, stupid mistakes, new undercut, some log washed out of what used to be a splat rock. There's 1,000 things that can happen. And I got less interested in exposing myself to that world. And it was a lot more fun to focus on being better at something that wasn't going to kill anybody. It's kind of a weird thing to think that, we ran this and it was so fun, and then someone dies. And you're like, I kind of wish that they hadn't gone there, because I would rather have them than have anybody be doing that. So that was kind of an unfortunate part of it. You recognize the dangers are really real when it starts taking out your friends. And in that 90s zone, I think there were like 6 people that I'd lived and traveled with who died. And it was kind of like, oh, this isn't fun anymore. That didn't happen in my parents' world. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen in the canoe clubs. Mm-hmm. This is different. We're playing a much more dangerous game. So let's figure out, there's 1,000 different games to be played in this sport. Why don't I just choose another one? Yeah. So that's been great. People who want to do that stuff, they are going hog wild and doing it beautifully. And I 100% support their choice to do that. But I also want to show that there's 1,000 sides of kayaking that aren't that. I mean, if you want to go squirt boat the Ocoee all the time, go squirt boat the Ocoee all the time. If you want to play at Hellhole all the time, if you want to run one river over and over again, all that stuff is valid. And I want to help you do it as best as you can and show you new things to do on it. Dangerous stuff is not the only way to progress kayaking. And it's great for the people who want to do that. Like I said, I'm all about it. I want to run a 100-foot waterfall. I'm dying to run that. I think it would be really cool to feel what those things feel like. But I would never go first. I'm not going to find out that there's a rock at the bottom. And every time, I see those videos of Dane in Hawaii and stuff, I'm always like, oh my God, it just seems like such a big risk when the whole rest of your life is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Other highlights, I guess, or low points. One time I was basically teaching a clinic, taking a bunch of freestyle boaters down the green, and everyone got out, and I showed them how to run, go left, and took a wicked hit on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Wasn't a bad hit. Didn't seem like that bad at the time. But then by the time we got to Chief, I was like having tingling all down my arm. And then by the time I got to Gorilla, I couldn't even hold my paddle. And I had to walk out. And that was like a real ego buster because I was sort of leading a group from all over the world that was all into freestyle. And I had to walk off the green for the first time ever. And then I had to go, get MRIs and have shoulder stuff. And I think that was the beginning of that shoulder problem that I had for a while after that. So that was just anytime you're incredibly confident and it goes wrong, it seems like maybe you just wonder what part of your brain misjudged that so poorly.
Yeah. Was
so confident that you fully blew something that's consequential. That's really an embarrassment. So that really stands out as something where, I know go left. I know it really well. I thought I was going to ace it, and I really didn't. So that kind of woke me up a little bit of like, oh, things hurt more than they used to. I didn't even flip. I just hit my shoulder on the wall, but it was just maybe my shoulder was not in good shape already. I don't know. But it was like, oh, injuries suck. Now I know why Shane doesn't like to run that. Oh, and the doctor, when I got there and I'm telling about the accident, kayaking, hit a rock on my left shoulder, this little slot thing. He goes, well, was it go left? I was like, yes. Are you a kayaker?
How do you know that?
He's like, no, but I see kayakers who get hurt at go left a lot. It's like, oh.
Okay.
Yeah, that's bad. Other bad things, I guess, is just, when rivers go away, that's always a weird thing.
That is sad.
The BO went under. My mom got to go the BO in the raft on one of the last runs, and Shane was always so into that sort of stuff, and I thought it was great. And then I got down there, and it was on the way gone, but it didn't seem like fully gone. So it wasn't a huge loss to me. Then all these rivers we know have been threatened, but they really just go away. And then the White Nile, which is had become the hub of international kayaking. I never thought of it as that way. But it was a thing every winter just about. It was like, if you can afford the ticket, suddenly it's $20 a day for a place to camp and food. And shuttles are dirt cheap. And you can run the river, you can run hard rapids, you can run easy rapids. You do the biggest kickflips in your life, and Nile Special is right there. It was like, and you meet such good, nice people from all over the world. Everybody from the kayaking circuit cycled through there. It was like a destination with no shuttles and not everyone camping different. Everyone's right there on one island. And when that went away, it was crushing in so many ways. But that trip was just really odd. I got there. We flew in trying to catch it on the last day. I think Dane and Emily got it on the last day. We were there the next day, and it was going away. And then we would paddle that section almost every day, and there'd be less and less, and the wave would be a little higher and a little higher. And then towards the end of that trip, the island was going underwater that everyone had camped on in the past. So we got out, and we're looking around the island, and I took a brick. It was just really sad to see this whole campground that was it was heaven. There were monkeys in the trees. There were beautiful birds. There was all sorts of wildlife. It was like jungle and camping. And all of a sudden it's getting lower and lower and lower, and less of it's certain. So then at some point we heard that some of the monkeys on the island were getting stranded because so much of the ground was underwater all around the island. They'd all gotten condensed to this one little zone where they was still sticking up in the lake. And so we got this plan that we were going to go save them with Sam Ward. It was great. We had grocery baskets and tarps and all sorts of weird things. We were going to go save the monkeys. And we went out there, and it was just so, I never thought of a lake a dam being such a just an environmental holocaust for everything that lives there. We're paddling across there, and there's like all sorts of random squirrels and animals just basically swimming around and trying to find land. There's all this current coming down. There's these big, massive, anything that floated was covered with insects, just covered with insects. And so you'd see them go by, and it was like, oh God, what's going on here? But then, any hill, everything underground had come up to the top and was all clinging to the last of it. And as they would go under, they would all cling to each other, and then they would drift on by. So we were getting these like bugs all over your boat. And we got out there, and we did find the monkeys. And both Emily and EJ were absolute saviors. I did not swim for a monkey. I looked at the monkey swimming along and, was thinking of trying to hold it with my paddle and all these other things. And all of a sudden, Emily just grabs the monkey and puts it in her lap. It's like, oh, now what do we do? So we like pushing Emily along over to where the other boat was that could help. And EJ dove in and swam for one and came swimming back with it. But yeah, they saved a couple monkeys, and we went around looking for other ones, and it was just amazing, just all the life that is underground, all the ants, all the crickets, all the we found some sort of squirrel, some cute little squirrel that was swimming around, but its head was just completely covered with bugs. Mm-hmm. And one of the other kayakers put it on and like washed it off or whatever, and then he went over to put it on the shore, but as soon as he dropped it on shore, it was covered with ants because they were all still climbing up. And it was just like, I don't know, it was just really strange to think of the river's gone and we're worried about the wave. And then you realize what just happened to everything that lived there.
All the other life in the area, yeah.
Yeah, I'd never had so much empathy for insects before. Mm-hmm. Just what we did to them was awful.
What do you want to leave people with? What are you excited about now? Kind of what's the...
I don't know. Maybe just the ability to know that you can choose your own path and you can do a lot of things. You got to be careful. I mean, you definitely don't want to be the person who, can never go to Canada again or limits themselves by mm-hmm. completely running out of money and then, not being able to afford to ever make any anymore. You've always got to have those pads and stuff, but there's so many different ways that you can travel and kayak. I think in a way, like going to a Grateful Dead show and seeing those people selling T-shirts and peanut butter sandwiches, it kind of opened my mind that maybe I didn't have to go to law school. But not everybody can do that. Not everybody's going to be lucky. Not everyone's going to have a family that's willing to bail you out if things go wrong or if your car breaks down in Oregon. But if you do have those things, it's amazing what you can accomplish in other ways. I think most humans have a lot of ability. And if you focus at one thing, you can get very good at it if you just keep the focus. But you don't have to. I mean, people who have kids are focusing all their energies on that next generation. Mm-hmm. People don't have kids. Some of them, like myself, might suddenly realize just by exposure that I really like finding other people's kids and seeing if I can take them to the next level, and that's really fun too. People like my family might realize that they love the land and the nature, and that their gift to the next generation is going to be protecting a little piece of it somewhere. Find a little piece of it and do what you can. My aunt was involved in protecting the road down to the takeout of the Caney Fork and expanding some of the parks right now. And I'm recognizing, maybe making somebody better at kayaking doesn't really compare to protecting land forever. That 10 green thing seems like a wicked good idea. So mm-hmm. in a way, I'm like recognizing all the things I wasn't doing because I've been so distracted by kayaking. I'm proud of the fact that by focusing on kayaking, I got good at, and I have things that I can share about it. That's a sense of reward. But there's way bigger fish to fry in this world.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot going on that matters more to more people and more animals and more environments and all that sort of stuff. So you kind of got to balance it. Be aware of what you're not doing, but also, really focus on what you are doing. I don't want to be the kind of person who gets old and crotchety and watches TV and decides and talks about the glory days.
Well, I know how much you give back. You're always the first person to take new people aside and teach them. You're always the first person to give up like what you had planned, like what you said, like give up what you had planned for the day to give back to the next generation. So I know you don't have kids in the sport, but I know everybody in the sport kind of sees you as like Uncle Clay. So I really appreciate you for all that you do for the sport. And
Thank you for saying so. But definitely just I grew up in that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm doing anything that my family didn't do with me and that all the people in those canoe clubs didn't do with me. So when people are talking about how to get into the sport, humans like to help humans.
Yep.
There's clubs all over this country doing the same thing. And it's really fun when you get to the college age or high school age when you can make fun of the clubs, and there's videos out there making fun of the clubs. And, there's all sorts of people saying don't be a club boater or whatever. But they're great people, and they teach kayaking.
If every TVCC for years, like they're great. There's TSRA, TVCC. There's some great organizations.
If everybody did 10 years in a club, the world would be a better place. Whether they go on from that or whether they come to it later in life, it's just a great situation because it puts people from every demographic, every political spectrum, every economic. I mean, I was boating with somebody not too long ago and realized that they were getting back in this super fancy BMW, and you just think, well, didn't see that coming. And somebody else, of course, is like driving some super rickety old truck. But on the river, you don't notice any of those things.
Right.
It teaches you that people are people. And the travel, I mean, I don't know that I ever would have traveled like I did except for kayaking. And I didn't realize how much you learn from travel. I didn't want to go to Africa. I mean, I don't know. I never thought Africa's where I wanted to go, but all of a sudden there's this big wave there, and I'm in.
Yeah.
And suddenly, a zebra walks by, and you're like, oh my God, they're real. Or I went on some little podunk safari sort of thing, and all of a sudden a giraffe leans over and looks at you through the Jeep window, and you're just like, it's big and it's really tall and it's beautiful. Oh my God. It's like, how do we see all those things as kids and not realize that they're real and suddenly have some sort of connection to them? Mm-hmm. So until then, I think you hear about the rhinos. The last of the rhinos, like, yeah, everything's going to go extinct. We're taking over the planet, whatever. It all seems so sort of like, I don't know. We're just so isolated from the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But then when you see the rhino walking around with the guards around it and they tell you it's one of 5, and you're like, so like the whole species is gone. So this rhino is like, knows that there's no more rhino. And all he's got to do is just walk around and just the hopelessness of some of those situations over there.
Well,
opens you up to other things.
I very much appreciate everything you do, and thanks for taking time. I know you're busy, but thanks for taking time out of your schedule.
I am busy. Here. I'm going to try to go meet some people and go kayaking.
Awesome. Well, go have fun, man. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.